Hello everyone. Today we're going to be doing a different kind of video. This is more to kind of add on to one of my friends' videos that they made not too long ago. This is going to be a more in-depth analysis of the Roblox game called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Diamond, or known as JJBAD. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Diamond came out around the time of February 11th, 2023 and was made by the creator Maki and Maki. When he made this game, it was instantly pushed to be a closed community. Some things to note about this game is right away, even though it was made around the time of the downfall of JoJo games, it had more of a unique style compared to the other ones. It's highly referencing and based off of the old game of the Part 2 JoJo game, and this is more of a permadeath type style game. Some things to note is once you're let in, you're given no real indication starting out on what to do or anything, or kind of what to look forward to. Though we're just going to mainly kind of go over some more casual facts of its history going up to now, and some of my own perspective of the game itself. To go back on this, we're going to first look over my own history of the game, and then talk more about game history with that as well. I started playing JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Diamond back in 2023, April 19th. It was around 2 years after the game's official release to the public. I was introduced to the game by my old friend the Bladed Ninja. He hit me up on Discord and told me to try out this new unique JoJo game, as all the other JoJo games we played were dying out around this year already. From checking out this game right away, I could see there is no real indication or help given out to any of the new players. It was pretty clear right away that it was meant to be for sure a hardcore permadeath JoJo game without any real help in any sense. The problem I saw with this is, even though they tackled the hardcore aspect fun in their own way, it definitely pushed away from new players wanting to kind of get deep into this game. Main reason for this is there is no real indication or anything on what you're supposed to do. It's more of a kind of run around and figure it out and get killed and re-roll your character many times until eventually you figure it out, which some people might be fine with, but it's not something I can tackle every player who enjoys the hardcore experience of games sometimes. When I first started out, I was not a really big player. I went through the game kind of just not really serious or taking it serious, kind of just ran around. I did get kind of interested in its unique type of art style of the models and the map. I do say the map itself was pretty good, but the models did throw me off, as I was used to more kind of advanced models from recent JoJo games, but it was nice to see something more tackled in a simple type of style. Around the same time of that month of April, I did eventually meet up with someone who goes by the name of Lei. Me and Lei partied up around time in Diamond when it was still fresh and new, and we started a team. Me and him would kind of go together, and he taught me most of the basics of the game, as one thing to note about this game is it was heavily Part 4 focused. There wasn't any normal public obtainable way to get in any other stand like Tiger Fan Green or Gold Experience. Those were prior to events, as a lot of other part stands were unfinished and made to be just event-wise stands. Moving on from that, Lei had taken on some events beforehand from playing and had supported me by kind of helping me, giving me some event stands, and teaching me the basics of the game's type of mechanics and system. We went on for that for the next month as I got better at the game and I got more used to its type of simple style. One thing to note is this game for sure was heavily unbalanced is a lot of things weren't heavily looked at, but this was kind of the plan for it. Is it's not bad that it wasn't balanced. In the sense, everything was unbalanced to a point where you could beat anyone with anything, which I think at the time was a pretty good take, though there was obviously some flaws in that system with certain type of builds, or when we had the one-shot method of killing people with the stand arrow. The stand arrow back then was based off of worthiness. You would gain worthiness by mostly just losing HP. Walking around and aging up and doing stuff to get it up as well, but it was mostly lowering your HP to a very low amount and heal multiple times until the arrow would glow in your hand, showing you're worthy enough. The problem is if you were not worthy, the arrow would guaranteed wipe you. Now, with this game being a one-life system, you spawn in as a certain age and height, and you just customize clothes. With this knowledge in mind, it kind of feels crucial to try and get a good type of spawn build and not want to lose it right away. But this game already kind of notifies you that you can lose your character pretty quick and easy. So it's definitely something you got to be careful about on how crucial it is to surviving. Another thing to note from this is because of the arrow one-shotting non-worthy people, after obtaining any type of stand, you would actually reset your worthiness down back to level 0. Meaning if a stand arrow was to hit you again, you would automatically be wiped. So even though some of the unbalanced aspects were good and fun in their unique way, others were kind of disapproving, as you might see players using the actual baby stand from part 4, the invisible baby. And they would use the stand arrow to insta-wipe players without getting off any type of notice that they're in the area. Now, obviously there's going to be some flaws in their system always, and tackling a lot of non-balancing stands will for sure put it at a halt. But other than that, the game had a unique system. Not many JoJo games tackled the permadeath hardcore experience, and so it was something new. Sadly, this game never reached high amount of players. The highest player count it would ever reach back in the year of 2023 was in the summertime when a lot of content and events were dropping. The highest player counts you could see on a daily basis were anywhere from 50 players to 100 players daily. The game being closed community definitely slowed down the amount of players that could get in the game, but it was more built that way because it was easier to kind of handle things, handle reports, but also because of the mass amount of exploiters that would pop up anytime the game was made public, as it didn't seem to have a very secure system in place at the time. On from that, after the 1 month of kind of being shown the game from low, I then eventually stumbled across a gang I was invited to, and it would be now known as the Speedwagon Foundation. At the time, they were more known for their Hamon techs, as they would go around maining Hamon to wipe any undead and help the living. Eventually, they changed the name to Speedwagon Foundation. I didn't really take a part of the gang to fully try and help them in any way. I more saw it as an opportunity to kind of get a boost in the game, kind of get some items and kind of learn and experience more with a team. And so I decided to join them. Not very long after, they kind of chose my role and put me obviously in the same ranks as everyone else starting out, but eventually I was able to move up to one of the higher officers and researchers in their ranks, and they deemed me worthy enough to bolster one of their Whitesnakes. Whitesnake in the game was pretty valuable like other stands, but the reason why Whitesnake was more valuable is because you had the ability to actually steal another player's stand and store it. Because of this, many Whitesnake accounts were made to store many amounts of stands farmed up to kind of keep progress going always. Speedwagon Foundation would win any type of event they can, do any giveaway, anything they could, and get many event discs or Whitesnakes. From this, they would supply it to me and our other Whitesnake storage player. Don't remember his name, but me and him were the main two in the Speedwagon Foundation at the time. From this, they would basically be on the front lines as I stayed behind and just played more of their storage unit, as I didn't want to really be involved in anything they were doing. I was really only in it for most of the time just to kind of, as I said before, to boost it in the game. And so I kind of kept to myself and would help with some storing stands, and on rare occasions I would go out and help them in any type of fight. Not too long after, eventually more and more gangs started to appear. Around this time I still had a pretty bad laptop and had an issue of my screen freezing anytime I dropped below a certain amount of frames, as I could only run this game around 10 to 15 frames on a daily basis. Now that I got a PC, I don't have that problem anymore, but it was definitely something I had to push through that entire year. Not too long after, I would see Lay started to act different around me. He would find out about this information and seemed to always try to take advantage of it, as back then, if you logged during combat tag, or even if you were not full HP and rejoined, you would get fully wiped. Learning this new information, Lay would take it upon himself to sometimes set up stuff. He'd maybe hit me while I'm frozen, or put me in combat sometime. Kind of putting it as he's joking around, but from too many repeated occurrences of it, it started to become more and more suspicious. After a while, I found out he was actually planning with another going by the name of Last Laugh. These two were planning to steal my one of my Whitesnake accounts, and basically wipe me. When I confronted Lay about this, he tried to play it off almost all the time as he didn't know it was me. As during this time in the game, your Roblox username was hidden by a randomly generated name, and so without being shown really anything, it was pretty difficult to really know who you just attacked. From this, Lay would use this information to try and, in a way, go behind my back a little bit, which, it's fine. It's past issues, it doesn't matter to this day, but because it happened in the history of time, gotta go over it as much as can to fully explain the history. After the events of this, I saw another game pop up from the name of Stardust Crusaders. Lay approached me at one point as he was being shamed from the Speedwagon Foundation Corp, and asked me about wanting to Stardust Crusaders as he was a high-ranked person there. I wanted to take him up on his offer, and so I looked into it and looked into trying to join the Stardust Crusaders. I saw one of the owners, going by the name of Star Lucia. He noticed that I was from the Speedwagon Foundation almost instantly and banned me from there before I could get even a word out, saying I was a spy. Because of this, Lay kept trying to push me to join it, but didn't know I was banned even after the multiple times I told him. Going on from there, our gang, the Speedwagon Foundation, started to fall apart from the amount of spies and kind of information they leaked out to other people carelessly. They weren't taking good care of the gang. The problem with this is eventually I became a high KOS target, is I was getting hunted down in every server by the Stardust Crusaders or any player. I became very well known at some point, back then in 2023 around summertime, we'd say around July maybe, as I was known for having Whitesnake a lot. And so I was hunted down because of that information being handed out too much. And so almost any day I did play a game, I had to basically be protected by the Speedwagon Foundation in high caution level areas, as it was the only way to get any progression. Not too long after, the Speedwagon Foundation would eventually fail and be broken down, as they had no real allies left, and that's when I eventually left it and wanted to go on my own. After that, I did start playing Diamond more on my own, as I still had some friends in the game, but I didn't really move in any gangs after that. I tried to make my own gang, but I saw that people couldn't be trusted and information kept coming out, so I knew I had to stay solo for most of the time. Going on from this is around the near end of the time that I was playing Diamond. Is around the month of August after the events of history. I did get hit by a ban report. From this ban, I was banned for almost around, I'd like to say, 6 or so months, and so I fell out of Diamond. Eventually, I was allowed back in the early around, actually once again, in April of 2024. When I was brought back in Diamond, I saw a lot has changed. Not only did they have all the stands public use, so you could easily obtain gold experience or purple haze from a stand arrow now, instead of it being through an event only. I saw they also changed up the combat system, as they looked like they wanted to try balancing the system. The problem is, when they brought in the new balancing, it made a lot of stands more useless or a lot more lower tier than they should be, and so a lot of changes had to happen. I did find out that this was Maki's first real main game, and so it was more of like a experiment on the coding, and so he was going through it. From that time, when I rejoined, I still was staying pretty low on Diamond and not doing much, but that's when Star Lucia hit me back up again and kind of said he was getting back into Diamond, and so he invited me to a new gang he made. I joined it right away and made some friends from there, and basically stayed with them, meeting Star and Art. Going from there, we'd go on to play some events and just kind of play main game a lot more, get any progression and learn new updates out. And that's when I started to find out that Ark was a known exploiter in some of the events, and I saw nothing was being done to really reveal any of his information. Once all 3 of us got ranked to tester, that's when I found out more about Ark's exploiting. The problem with my type of device being on a laptop is I didn't have the capacity to clip anything or record anything, so I always had to leave everything up to Star. That's why I try to stay around him anytime an exploit was on the game or anything happened, is I needed him to record anything. I never could record anything, and told Star on numerous occasions to record anything he finds, even if Ark was doing something. Now, I don't know if he ever did record anything, and so, but from how long it took Ark to be banned, I'm going to assume that nothing was recorded at the time. Eventually, one of the events came in 2024 in the summertime, and it was a Gang Wars event hosting me, Star, Ark, and another against another team. We were able to come out on top in the event, but afterwards, not too long after, me, Star, and the rest of the team and the other gang found out that Ark was cheating and giving out information to some of the members by using an FE script to see the other team's inventory. Once this was reported in, Ark was immediately taken off tester and banned, and some shade was thrown on me and Star as we were, in his party. Makes most sense. But as we didn't do anything wrong at the time, nothing was taken from that. Me and Star would then go on to keep trying to help test stands and keep pushing in more, but this is when Diamond started to die out with its content. You'd only see maybe 5 to 10 players daily or less, as the content wasn't there anymore and there was nothing really being changed. Eventually, we saw Diamond kind of pick itself back up, preparing itself for one of its final updates, adding more stands like Anubis and more content to come while trying to host some events. Around this time, there was some talk about selling the rights to Diamond to another creator. It never ended up happening, but we did find out that the files to the game were sold to another person for around $200 US. Not too long after, another JoJo Bizarre Adventure Diamond copy showed up, its first copy. With this copy, it basically was pretty bad. It didn't have anything different and it had more bugs at the time. The problem with this is the owners were incompetent and didn't try to strive to take it seriously, as it felt more of a sandbox type game than an actual good copy. Because of this, the copy never went anywhere and never got better. But not too long after, it seemed one of them leaked the game's files, and so now those files are out everywhere, getting more and more copies to arise. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's definitely bad that they leaked the files, but in a way, because this is going to be the final update for the main game, this at least gives some potential to a copy game to try and continue its legacy to go further on, while the owner works on other projects after this. To end it off, we'll also do a small deep analysis on the actual history of the game itself. Starting from 2023, we saw numerous problems with the game as owners, mods, anything. The owners didn't really talk to the community too much. And when they did talk to the community, they seemed to be hated or disliked, I would say more. Hated is a strong word, but disliked at the time in 2023. Because of this, the owners tried to push away from their community and tried to push out updates that they wanted themselves and not care too much of what the community says. Because of this, the owners are actually hated more and more and disliked in general from what they're kind of doing with the game. Eventually, some of the admins started to speak up about things, as one of the admins dropped an entire Google Docs file at one point, kind of explaining his kind of state in the Diamond team and anything he was dealing with. Not too long after, we would see that many admins would basically be put on the team. They'd come and go, and it didn't seem like a lot of thought was put into choosing their admins or any background check, as many admins would get hired and then would get kicked shortly after from mod abusing in main game or just killing people with boost. Not too long after that, we got one more mod, and he was actually able to stick around for a decent amount of time. He had a thing against me for a while as well, this mod, and pretty much disliked anything I was doing. He would try and find anything to kind of keep me away from playing the game. He wouldn't let me enter events, I couldn't win giveaways, he would find any way to basically wipe me or leak any Whitesnake information out of me. Anything I kind of put out there would get instantly shamed from this mod. This mod would semi-revive the game at the time with the amount of events he hosted, but from sending some players in there, we shortly found out that he was also kind of offering players to buy event stands off him with real-life currency, kind of disregarding the events as a whole. Not too long after this, we see that he would also kind of mod abuse in-game as well. He would kind of be in a gray area with the amount of times he did it, but he still got away with it, as not too long after we found out from the actual admin and owner themselves that they don't care what this mod does. As long as he's on their team and working, they don't care what he gets away with, as they'll let him basically do whatever he wants because he's good at working on the game. And I mean, that kind of really struck down the community, as they were not enjoying this. Now, once he was actually gone, this mod, he kind of retired on his own and quit temporarily, but never came back afterwards. We found out that he actually was giving morphs to his friends and boosting them. He even boosted the morphs to make them better in any way. Morphs are more of supposed to be a cosmetic type thing. They're supposed to be the name of, let's say, the Jotaro Kujo morph that I currently have. It's just more of a cosmetic look with a name and appearance wise, kind of showing more uniqueness to other players, kind of to symbolize you've been around. The only thing is these morphs kind of became a high currency thing in Diamond for a long time and was begged upon to be given to players for a long time. And many instances have happened of maybe talking about wiping morphs, but from how it stands, nothing like that has happened yet. Overall, moving forward with this game, even though it is wrapping up, kind of finishing off the final update, not having too much left of it, we did get talk of sounds like a sequel or remake to this game in the works. We don't have an official release date or anything on this from Maki Maki, but we can just look forward to seeing how it could kind of develop from this game itself. Currently, he's working on a Ben 10 game in a similar style to this JoJo game first, to then move on to that project. Some things we have to look into those. Currently, the game is public access for anyone to join. You do not need to be verified into the game anymore. But I think they don't look upon the community too well sometimes. The testers currently get shamed too easily. They're told they don't test stands. They don't test any updates that are released. But I think it's also the problem is kind of reaching out to the owners and admins sometimes is pretty difficult, as the owner's reply time is not the greatest. He kind of has a history of pretty bad replies. Besides that, it's hard to kind of push out updates, so any update that kind of deemed to be bad or anything would be shamed on the testers as we didn't test it good enough in their perspective, when in reality it just wasn't really spoken upon us much. One instance with the testers is a stand that we saw was too buggy and busted to be released. We talked about it not going to main game right away. That's when one of the main admins said that they kind of want chaos to unfold in the main game first before they publish any nerfs, and so they published it to the public and did not nerf it for a good amount of time, letting chaos unfold upon players. Now, normally this might be fine, as at the end of the day, they're the higher ups. If they want to do that, we can't say anything against it. But then the testers get shamed for it, and it kind of seems unfair on who we kind of have to take their burdens for anything we want to work on, and they can just kind of get away with it. But it's not that serious to look into too much. Besides that, the game itself is for sure not very new player friendly. Obviously it's a hardcore permadeath style game, which is fine. It's not going to tackle a huge audience or the same audience always, but there's no real notice into the game. For a long time, this game had no real help. You'd be thrown into this game and kind of pushed into getting wiped by players who know how to play this game a lot longer than you. The reason you don't see more players is this game was never marketed ever, or even well, and so there's no real way to even know this game is a thing. This game is pretty underrated, I would say, but without any good marketing or way to advertise the game, there's no way it could hit anyone's For You page on their games at all ever, kind of bring their interest in. And there's no uniqueness to it at the start, there's nothing to really pull you into staying in the game when you spawn in and get killed instantly when you get your first stand or anything like that, as you're just going to be running around endlessly trying to figure out what to do for the first 2 weeks. If you try to ask anything on it, they'll most likely just tell you to join the Discord, look at their wiki and Trello, and figure it out from there. The problem is, with the wiki and Trello have been outdated for a while and only are now getting updated, a lot of information in there doesn't really go into depth on what they kind of do and what to expect in the game. It's just more of the basic stuff, like how a stand arrow works and stuff. For moving forwards, I'd recommend they maybe look into better ways to help the community, not only be more open and listening to them for future reference. I'm not saying they have to agree with them, but more just keeping that open ears to see what they might have wanted to see happen in the game. Other than that, I would recommend that they look into trying to bring in a new player base, as right now the game is not new player friendly at all. And instead of making the excuse of, we'll join the Discord and look at an outdated wiki or outdated Trello and try and figure it out yourself, kind of put something in there at the start of the game to give them more of a helping hand. Currently, I think we have a book you spawn in with that gives you a very quick analysis on the game. The problem is you can still get killed during this time trying to read the book, and the book doesn't really help you that much. It quickly sums up how stands work and how obtaining works in progression, and then it just kind of throws you in the pit and sees if you will like the game or not. And because of that, a lot of new players don't seem to stick around too much. So moving forward, if they want more players to maybe tackle the game for later on. I would say try to tackle the new player base and try and be new player friendly. Try and look for ways to better bring those people in and keep them interested in the game. Is you need more stuff that kind of want them to stay. If they don't want to do it, that's up to them. But it's more of just a suggestion if they want to try and get a more higher player base. And definitely want to advertise the game